Right, we want now to buckle down to a discussion with our panelists. We're already here. You're watching the Leadership Forum here on AM Live. And today we turn our focus on life being a yo-yo. Have you ever seen a yo-yo, played a yo-yo when you used to be a kid? Yes, this harks me back to so many years when my dad bought me one. And I still have very fond memories of me playing the yo-yo. But how is life? Because some people, take life to be like a yo-yo. It goes up, it goes down, sometimes it gets tangled up. Then you need actually to just make sure you balance it so that you can actually have a smooth motion, up and down, up and down. This is how life is sometimes. It zigs, it zags, it is up, it is down. Life has a way of throwing curveballs along your way. So how do you get your true north when you're tangled up on the string of a yo-yo? How do you get your life balance back? Some of you are like this yo-yo. You don't know where you are. Today you're up, tomorrow you're down, and that is life. They always say it is not an exact science. So we have our panelists already here with us. They'll be talking to us. It's all about motivation today. We have with us Dr. Chris Hart, who is a psychologist. Also, we do have with us this morning Dr. Wale Akinyemi, who is the CEO of Power Talks. We do have with us as well Ondeng, who is an executive coach. Also, we do have with us Dr. Mwangi. Mwangi is also an executive coach. And we have as well with us this morning Rita Oyier. She's a communication specialist. So guys, did any of you play? Did you play with a yo-yo when you guys were kids? Chris?
Oh, of course.
You did?
Everybody
Give me your experience. How was it? Fond memories?
Oh, fond memories, yes, absolutely.
Let's say for Peter then.
I've tried. I remember playing with a yo-yo, but I never could get it right. It's one of those things that I never quite got. And I'd love to go back and try again. I was watching you just now. I said, look how expertly you're doing this thing. So smooth.
So
Maybe
smooth.
Before the show is over, I'll
Yeah, I've been practicing overnight so that I don't get the goofs, Dr. Wale Akinyemi.
Well, yeah, I guess we all did at one time or the other.
Right. Dr. Mwangi.
Yeah, sure. I remember. In fact, it's been many years, and I've never seen a yo-yo like that. The ones we played with were a bit different. This must be. These are the ones made in China, or what?
No, this is not. Look at it. This is a special one, just made for me, customized.
I can see that. I've never seen one like that.
All right, Rita.
I'm starting to question my upbringing because I did not play with a yo-yo. Either I did not play or I grew up in the room. Something must have happened.
You had a doll. Of course, you must have had a doll. I suppose.
Was I that kind of a girl?
Why you tell us?
I didn't play with the doll.
But yes, life is a yo-yo of just, this is just to set, the tone for our conversation today. As I mentioned, it is not really an exact science. For many Kenyans who are waking up this morning, they want to get that, pep talk, that encouragement, because you feel sometimes you don't want to just wake up from your bed. Sometimes you just don't want to, draw away the duvets because you just want to be in that mode of sleep. You don't want to face the world. So many challenges, so many disappointments. Maybe somebody right now is watching us, has just lost his job. Somebody is grieving, and they feel, what do I have to actually look forward to in this life? What do I do right now? I'm batting my head on the wall. I'm trying to, send the CVs, looking for jobs. Right now, I've just been laid off. Where am I, in this journey of life? So we want someone to get encouraged. Many of us, or many of them also are watching us from hospitals. And yes, they're bedridden there. And it seems, yes, there's this exorbitant bill they can't pay. And the situation is getting worse and worse. And they just want to get encouraged today to feel, yes, there's someone is really caring out there. And what side of the yo-yo are they on? Are they up or are they down? For them that are, they're celebrating their successes, what do we have to tell them about when you are the apex and the zenith of success? I mean, how do you then make sure that you stay on top, right? So we know it vacillates, it goes down. We have the valleys, we have the mountaintop experiences, and this is what we want to hear from you as well. Maybe we'll learn from you. Of course, you can give us your experiences as well, and you tell us, I don't know how you're going to slice it. Life is a yo-yo. From your own perspective, how you're going to do it today. So without further ado, I just want to give the the rules of engagement on this particular forum for them that have not been here for long. Dr. Chris hasn't been here for quite a while, and also Rita has been a while as well. Right, we had Philip, Wale Akinyemi, Dr. Caesar had traveled, but good to see you. Welcome back. Right, so we have a bell. Today I give you 8 minutes to actually just talk to Kenyans about life being a yo-yo, ups and downs about life. So midway I'm going to raise it just to make sure that, just to warn you that yes, at least you should be now knowing that you're midway, you should be preparing your closing remarks or getting that punch so that now you can hit it home. And then towards the end I'm going to, be somewhat vacillating it so that you can see you're supposed to be winding up. So if you go overboard, I'll ring the bell. Remember, you're tethered, you have your mic on your lapel, so you can actually remove the mic because there's another mic waiting for you at the lectern. So you will just walk over to the lectern and then deliver your speech. You have your camera. Your camera is camera 3, right? Just speak to the camera, speak to Kenyans. You're talking to a person who's discouraged. You're talking to a person who's celebrating, and of course, they'll love to see the eye contact as well. So we just want to give you this opportunity. We will go just beginning. I don't know, we should go sequentially because we have Rita nearest to the lectern. You don't want to begin?
No, I would. Okay. I want to listen first.
Dr. Caesar always, stands at the ready. Any moment you call on him, he's on the ready. Yes,
there's some great gentlemen here who can also.
I know, right?
I was praying you would start. And then you'll be next.
Yeah.
And then I'll be last.
I would love to hear these great people first.
Exactly.
So we'll allow Dr. Caesar Mwangi to walk over to the podium to just speak to Kenyans briefly, and then we'll take a short break, and then we'll continue with this particular conversation also on the other side of a break. So remember also you can hit us on Twitter. AM Live in TV is a Twitter handle. AM Live in TV is a profile name on Facebook, and 20505 is our SMS portal. So let's get the conversation going. Life is a yo-yo is what we are talking about today. So chime in. Again, our Twitter handle is AM Live in TV. Our Twitter handle also, our profile name on Facebook is 20505. And also you can cross over to our SMS portal there, 20505. Right, Caesar, you got 8 minutes beginning now.
Good morning, Kenyans. What a day, what a topic. Life is a yo-yo. And we've just seen that a yo-yo is something that is held by somebody, and it goes up and down, and sometimes it gets stuck at the bottom, and sometimes we lose control of it. And indeed, the statement that has been made is that life is a yo-yo, but I'd just like to change that statement and say that life is not a yo-yo, but life can be like a yo-yo. Can be like a yo-yo is different than is a yo-yo. And the reason I say this, ladies and gentlemen, is when we say that life is a yo-yo, we're saying we have no control over it. And therefore, it will always be up and down, and there's nothing we can do about it. And I'd like to say it can be like a yo-yo, because at times we feel that we've lost control, yes indeed, but I believe that as human beings, we have the potential and the capacity and the ability to make a choice. We have what I call intelligence and free will, which is familiar to everybody. We are intelligent beings, and we have free will. Therefore, we are able to choose how we will react to situations. And therefore, when this yo-yo effect takes place, and we feel like we're out of control and somebody somewhere is controlling us, we need to take back our power and say, I can take control of my situation. And life is then not a yo-yo to me, but it is an adventure. And I call it an adventure because in an adventure, we do not know what is around the next corner. In an adventure, we do not know whether there's going to be a deep hole or there'll be a high mountain in our way. And that's the adventure, because we cannot predict what is coming up. That does not mean it's a yo-yo, because if we face a mountain, we have a choice. We can lie at the bottom of the mountain and say, this mountain is too high. I cannot climb it. Therefore, let me lie here and perhaps die. But we also have a choice. If it's a mountain, we can go over that mountain. If it is too steep, we can find a way of getting equipment that will get us over that mountain. And if we are really challenged by the mountain, what is so solid, we can find a way of going through it. Because I believe life is that limited opportunity we have from the time we are born to the time we shall exit this material world. It's an opportunity, a period of time when we need to take control of that time. And we need to make the choice and decide whether it will be a yo-yo where we have no control and there is a foreign hand or a hand somewhere that controls us and we don't have any control but keep on going up and down. When I was thinking about a yo-yo and life itself, I thought the choice between two options. If it's a yo-yo, it could be meaningless. A yo-yo goes up and down. It doesn't make progress towards any goal. It's just up and down. A yo-yo therefore suggests that there is no vision in the person who feels that life is a yo-yo. No vision, no direction, and no place that that person wants to go. And in that process, then it lacks meaning. This situation may arise, my dear friends, I suggest perhaps, if we're too self-absorbed in ourselves, if we're too caught up in the normal trends of modern day living, which focus in a sense on me, myself, and I, what I want, and especially what will make me feel good. And that is the individualistic mentality, which is very common. The pursuit of self-interest, which is about, again, me, myself, and I, which is again meaningless. And when challenges do come up, and we are simply focused and self-absorbed in ourselves, we feel life has no meaning. And that's when it becomes a yo-yo, up and down, no control, depressing. But my dear friends, we will all face many challenges because life is an adventure. And some of that adventure is not very enjoyable. It could be an illness. It's not very enjoyable to be ill in hospital. But we can find meaning in that illness. It's an opportunity to reflect and to appreciate good health and to hope and pray that we will get out of this situation and we will do what we can with the life that we have, which is precious. Because when we're ill, there's not much we can do. But we know that when we get out and we are healthy, there is much more we can do with this life that we have. Therefore, it's an opportunity, even in illness, even in the challenge of illness. It could be a problem of broken relationships. Indeed, those can be very painful with loved ones, where we perhaps separate, we disagree, we go our ways. But in that difficulty, there's an opportunity to reflect. What was my role in this breakup? What more could I have done? How can I fix all my relationships? And I can only fix my relationships if I can focus on myself to improve myself. Therefore, it's an opportunity, part of the adventure. These are the challenges of life. And they should not be meaningless yo-yo movements up and down, but opportunities for us to grow, to learn from those situations that are difficult. My dear friends, the option we can take in life is up to us. And if we decide it's not going to be a yo-yo, it will be an adventure. But an adventure in what? I believe it should be an adventure in service. Forget about yourself. I often run leadership workshops. And one of the most interesting parts of those workshops is when I ask the participants a simple question. My dear friends, all of us are pursuing something in life. And all of us have a call to leadership. As a good man called Alexander Hubbard said, all are called to leadership. Captains of industry, presidents, housewives, school teachers, all are called to leadership. And I tell people we all have a chance to be leaders wherever we are in our scope of influence. So I ask them a simple question. Can you name for me 3 leaders who you admire as great leaders, who you believe really lived leadership and fulfilled their lives? They may be living, they may not be alive. I get very interesting feedback from people. And without a doubt, every single person who is named had great challenges. Life could have been like a yo-yo, but they had great challenges. But the one thing that differentiates them is there are certain characteristics in each of these people. I'll name you just a few. Some of the names that have come up include the late Geoffrey Griffins. Geoffrey Griffins set up Starehe Boys Center. Many of you may have gone to that school. Geoffrey Griffins set up the National Youth Service. He actually ran 2 major jobs at the same time. I think he used to work in one in the morning and work in one in the afternoon. And he set up great institutions serving this country. If you look at his life, yes, they may have been up and down, but he did not choose the yo-yo mentality. He chose the adventure of leadership, the adventure of service. He set up these beautiful institutions that continue to serve this country today. Thousands upon thousands of young people have gone through those institutions and their lives have been changed. He's considered by many participants over and over again in the different workshops as one of the greatest leaders this country has ever had. His life was an adventure in service. And that was a choice, I believe, he made because he impacted so many people. The others that keep coming up, Wangari Maathai, all of us know her. Her life was not easy. But she chose the choices she made to make a difference and have an adventure in service. True, she was harassed by the authorities of the time. True, she had family issues perhaps. But believe it or not, she chose the adventure. And that is characterized by a few things. One of them is a vision. A vision for something worthwhile that will lead to impact on many others. So a vision that impacts on the common good, on others, somehow putting yourself in the background and saying others are more important than me. A focus on that vision, which is a worthwhile focus, and going for it despite the challenges, despite the entanglements of the yo-yo, despite the yo-yo refusing to move up and down, you keep on moving with that vision. The struggle for service, service for the common good. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the choice of an adventure in service through the pursuit of worthwhile goals and the exercise of virtue. I get a very interesting discussion whenever we have this discussion. And at one time in one workshop, one participant mentioned one of the great leaders that I know is a man called Adolf Hitler. And we had a big debate. Was that really an adventure in service? And we realized actually that despite everything, there is a choice for the ethical, a choice for the good, a choice for virtue over vice in this adventure of service. Because in that process, you fulfill yourself and your human nature by pursuing what is good for others. Ladies and gentlemen, I think life is not a yo-yo. Life can be like a yo-yo, but it is up to the choices that we make to decide with the intelligence that we have and the free will, what are we going to do with this limited space of time that may vary from 1 day to 100 years if we're fortunate? What are we going to do? Is it going to be a meaningless yo-yo movement, or is it going to be an adventure in service? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Caesar Mwangi. The conversation continues apace with the panelist here. Up next, we do have Dr. Chris Hart, who is a psychologist, to talk to us about life being a yo-yo. Chris, you've got 8 minutes, beginning now.
Thank you. Yes, as you say, I'm a psychologist, and that means I'm one of the people who tends to see the rough end of life. I see lots and lots of people in all sorts of difficulties. It's very rare for people to come and see me because they're happy. So I suppose, unlike our previous speaker, I think life really is like a yo-yo. I think it's very much a yo-yo. And that comes as a bit of a shock to most people. I think everything in society, everything in our education, and I suppose the optimism of youth encourages us to think that life can be planned, that we can set ourselves out in some way to have a good life. And so we go through school and college just in a sense believing that we can plan our lives and everything will be fine. The reality is that our lives are really heavily dictated to by chance. Chance events, rare events, things that are unexpected, things that just completely knock life off the rails. I mean, stupid things really. I mean, like Mr. Trump getting elected, you know, and then all of a sudden tariffs appear and people can't get their green cards, and lives are completely disrupted by a chance event halfway around the world. So I think the real problem of life is not, are you talented? I mean, when successful people talk about their lives, they always make it look like their success was inevitable. They talk about their abilities, their talent, and they give you the impression that if you are talented, you're going to be successful too. What they forget to tell you is all about the lucky breaks they got. I mean, the fact is, even the most talented people still need a lucky break. I mean, J.K. Rowling, who's made an absolute fortune out of her books, but her first book languished in the sidelines for years and years and years, and just a lucky chance event brought it into the public eye. And if that hadn't happened, she'd still be sitting in Edinburgh somewhere, you know, relatively poor and completely unknown. And I think our whole lives are dominated by events like that. And the fact is that we can take advantage of them. Because the assumption is, from what I've just been saying, that all events, chance events, are bad events. That's not true. Life is full of the most immense opportunities. And that's what determines whether or not you succeed in life. So if you set out your life to take advantage of the opportunities as they arise, you're going to be much more successful than if you just slog away at some plan. Your plan will definitely be derailed, probably several times in your life. But if you make a habit of meeting lots and lots of strangers and have your eyes wide open and listening hard for the things they say and the ideas they give you, then all of a sudden your life can move in a different direction. And if you're prepared to take advantage of those new directions, then you're going to be more successful. I mean, my life is a perfect example of that. In school, I did what society expects. I thought I was good at science, so I'll go to college and study the sciences. And I came off the end of that escalator and became an industrial chemist. Okay, worked for one of those horrendous big multinationals that's busy polluting the planet. 20 years later, I went back to college and studied psychology, having figured out by then that that was much more the sort of thing I wanted to do. And I became a management consultant. Now, one of those chance management consultancy contracts brought me here 20 odd years ago. A couple of years later, chance event again started me writing for The Nation. I would never in a million years have thought of myself as a writer. But, you know, it happens. So you grab it, don't you? And you learn the skills and a new life opens up. I mean, in my particular case, I had a very good life from that chance event, because about a year after I'd been writing for The Nation, a young lady wrote to me and asked me a question, and we started corresponding about this. Very unusual thing for me to do, by the way. But a year later, we were married. Now that's how life is, isn't it? Life is dominated by chance events, good and bad. And so if you are setting yourself up to take advantage of those events, then you are going to be one of the successful ones. Now, you will also have to deal with some bad events. So that means, in effect, that you have to become resilient. You have to become the sort of person who is not utterly depressed by things going wrong. Just take it for granted that things will go wrong. Things always go wrong. You have to start thinking about, okay, what have I learned from that? What am I going to do different next time? What you mustn't do is have the mindset which says, something will always go wrong, that I will always be the loser. You have that mindset, well, you certainly will be the loser. But if you have the mindset which said, okay, that didn't go too well, I'm sure I learned something from that, I'm going to do that differently next time, you are going to succeed if you have that mindset. You have to have a mindset which says, I'm going to work like crazy. You know, it was famously said that 90% of success is just turning up. Yeah, it is. It's really true. Getting out of bed in the morning early and starting work and meeting lots of people and doing all those sorts of things is what makes you successful. So if you meet lots of people and you work hard and you look for the opportunities, you will succeed. Now, I'm often hearing things like, oh, that's so true, that's lovely, yes, great idea, but I don't have the money to start a business, I don't have the money to go to college or anything. Life is not about that. Life is chance encounters with strangers who give you ideas. Life is about having an idea for a business that doesn't require any capital to start it up. I know people who are doing fabulously well, running internet businesses where they have no capital, no office, they sit in their front rooms and they run a business empire on a laptop. Now, if they can do that, so can you. Some of those businesses are running in countries half a world away. So don't tell me that you can't do it because our economy is on the slide. You can always find an opportunity if you look for it. So that's my message. Yes, life is a yo-yo. Life really does hit you hard sometimes. You will go down. With the right degree of resilience, you'll come up again. More important than anything else is that you meet lots of people, that you listen hard and you look for opportunities. And if you look for those opportunities, and really work at them, you will succeed.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Chris Hart, of course, for that engaging speech there. And of course, he's raised a lot of issues that, of course, we'll take an opportunity also to drill deeper on the other side of this discussion away from the lectins as well. He says that our lives are heavily detected by chances, right? And do you have a lucky break, right? If most talented people, he says, they need a talent, they need a lucky break in their lives for, you know, something to just change in their life, change the course and trajectory of their life. He says life is a chance encounter with strangers who give you ideas. You can also always find a degree of resilience to make you bounce back from where you are if you've really fallen down. So there's a lot that we'll be going to talk about on the other side of the discussion as we're away from the lectern. But up next we have on the podium right now Peter Ondeng. And Peter Ondeng is going to talk to us still on this particular subject. He is an economic development expert, business strategist, and author with over 25 years of leadership experience in corporate, public, and non-profit sectors. He's also a writer, speaker, and a thought leader on entrepreneurship and business development. Peter, you got 8 minutes beginning now.
Thank you, Debarl. Good morning, Kenya. So let me throw a question that I want to guess you have asked yourself many times over your life. Why me? Why now? Have you ever asked yourself that question? I know I have asked that question many times because actually life sometimes swings things in your direction that seem unfair. Things sometimes that you don't see coming. It's like a wind that can come in, and it can come at a time when you least can afford it. Why me? Or why now? It seems almost obvious to talk about the ups and downs of life. We all know. I don't think I have to educate you that life has ups and downs. We know this. So that is a starting point. There are many things that we can talk about that get us up. There are also many things that bring us down. I want to just touch on a few things that I believe bring us up and bring us down. Then I'm going to focus my attention on one particular category of people. People who feel at the bottom and find that they really cannot see any way back up. When we talked about life as a yo-yo, the analogy that seemed more appropriate to me, and I wish we had called this life, is a seesaw. A seesaw is something that I played with when I was young, and I could relate much more to that. A seesaw, of course, is this thing in a playground where one child is sitting on one side and another person is sitting on the other side, and one goes up, and then when this one comes down, this one goes back up. Now, what happens when one of the children suddenly decides to hop off? Of course, you know that the one on the other side is going to come crashing down, and in that position, it is virtually impossible to get back up because you needed some kind of counterbalance. And sitting in that position, you ask yourself, how in the world am I going to get up out of here? It looks impossible. And there are very, very many people who find themselves in that kind of situation. Now, consider that you, right now, may be in a crisis. In fact, somebody once said that you're either coming out of a crisis, you're in a crisis, or you're about to get into a crisis. And this is real. So I feel sorry sometimes for psychologists or preachers or people like us who have to stand and try to encourage other people because there's a presumption that I have some answers that you need to walk away with, and sometimes convey that we are somehow immune from those things. When I stand here and talk to you, it's not because I have mastered it, because I am, as a human, coming out of a crisis, in the middle of a crisis, or about to enter into a crisis. This really is how life is all about. So the first thing, when you talk about the things that can get you down, Number one are the choices that you make. And choices are not necessarily bad or good, right or wrong, but we make choices. Life is a series of choices. It's a process. We make choices all the time. Once in a while, we make a choice that does not work out. It may have been a good choice, but because of circumstances, it simply did not work out. Sometimes we make bad choices, and we make those bad choices knowingly. But yes, choices that we make in life sometimes bring us to a place where we find ourselves down. But at the same time, those same choices can also bring us into a place where we're on the upside of that seesaw. So I'm just going to touch on that as a reality that life is not something happening all the time to us and we have no control. A lot of the things that bring us to where we are the choices that we make. The second thing, you could say, are things that other people do to us. It is very real. Sometimes you find yourself in a bad position because of some injustice, something evil that somebody did, or something that someone did deliberately to bring you to where you are. I remember that during the post-election violence, I came here to NTV. I was doing a program back then called Money Matters. Maybe you remember it. And I'd come in here to talk to some of the people who were covering the stories that were the things that were going on around the country. And I sat here with one of the ladies who was a journalist friend of mine. And we discussed what was happening in the country. And she asked me, she said, Pete, there are people out there who have been living with their neighbors for years. And last night, somebody comes, somebody you know, and torches your house. So here's a situation where you find yourself scattered, you're running for your life because of something that somebody did to you. It happens. And number three, life happens. Sometimes a hurricane comes that nobody saw coming. You can have the best plans, you can have the best ideas, you can have the best education, and you wake up one day and what you were planning to do has gone down the drains because of something nobody saw coming. And so what do? Whether it's by choice, whether it's because somebody did something to you, or whether it's the life happens situation, if you find yourself at the bottom, you need to make some choices, and there's some things that you need to do. I want to address myself to those who find themselves blinded by the situation that they're in. And you may be in this situation this morning. It makes me sad as a Kenyan that there are millions of people, I'm talking millions, perhaps even 70% of the population of Kenya, who find themselves in what could be like a trap, working and spinning their wheels, but never really seeing the light of day. Many of them living in squalor and in poverty. This is a national crisis, if you ask me. But let's just talk about you as an individual. You find yourself in a place where you've fallen for whatever reason, and you're wondering, what next? Let me just throw three things at you before my 8 minutes run out, and then I'll sit down. Number one, accept your situation. It may be that you were the CEO of a certain company, you may have been a politician, you may have actually maybe made some choices to put money in a bank that collapsed. Whatever the situation, you find yourself in a bad place that you must begin by accepting that situation. I am here. How many people have I seen who have refused to accept that such a thing could happen to them? And they live in this state of self-deception. Do you know somebody like that? They were in money, for example. The business collapsed, but they continue to live in opulence, in debt, and trying to do things that will continue to propel them into a deeper hole because they don't accept that they are in that situation. Whether it's something your parents did to you, whether it's something your spouse has done to you, whether it is a choice you made to move in a certain direction that collapsed, when you find yourself at the bottom of that seesaw,
begin by accepting where you are. Look around and don't look back and live in the past. I wish I had, regretting what had happened. Take stock, measure where you are, accept that this is what we have. Number two, you need to decide to look forward. A lot of what I'm sharing here have to do with the mind, because I believe that what a mind can believe and conceive, the mind actually can achieve. The mind has so much to do with where we go. And I can tell you, as Dr. Hart has also just said, that if your mind gets stuck on a I cannot, or I am not going to be able to achieve something, I can assure you it is going to be that much harder for you to be able to get there. Deciding that I am going to stand again is an important step towards getting up. I believe that you were made for a purpose. I was created for a purpose. There are many people who don't believe in God or believe in creation. I do. I believe that as long as I am alive, my purpose is unfulfilled. And so I may be in a difficult situation, but I am going to decide that I'm going to fulfill my purpose. And just remember, a lot of people who stand tall, people who you admire, people who you look at and say, so-and-so has really made it, many of their muscles were built in the hard times. They didn't grow in the good times. And life does bring these situations to you because it helps you also to grow. And finally, before I sit down, take a step. It's one thing to think positively. It's one thing to accept your situation. Take a step. If you can, take a step, a positive step today towards something, and let the momentum propel you to where you ought to be. I wish I had more time, but we'll talk more later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pete Ondeng. Of course, yes, he's asking probing questions. Yes, what choices are you making? Life is a series of choices. Are you a product of your own choice today? And things that other people did to you, are you still hung up with what they did to you? You're grieving and stuck in a morass, and you don't want to really forgive. Some of this, of course, situations might be very traumatizing. You went through harrowing tortures. It's difficult sometimes to, forgive. But we need to get to that point of forgiveness so that also we can heal up and move on in this journey of life. Also, it's talked about life happening. It happens to us. We don't prepare. We cannot be sufficiently prepared, but things just happen to us. We'll be discussing also much more of that on the other side of the discussion as well. But up on the lectern right now, we have Rita Oyier. She is a communication expert, also to give us a slice of what she thinks about life. Is it like a yo-yo? Is it a yo-yo? Rita, you got 8 minutes, beginning now.
Thank you, Debarl. Good morning, Kenyans. So when I got this topic, it got me very reflective. And I thought about my life itself from when I was in high school to date. And in that point of reflection, I actually cried. And I cried a lot, like a baby. Probably I needed to see Chris Hart there. But when I was done crying, I asked myself, so how did I get through? How did I get to this point? What has sustained me and what has kept me floating? What has kept me smiling? What has kept me going? For myself, that was me being myself. And the first thing I'd like to say is, as you go through life, find yourself and be yourself. Because when you're yourself and you are authentic, then even the people relating with you know what they're dealing with. Everyone likes a genuine relationship. But how do you relate with a fake? The second thing that happens is that when you know yourself, then you understand your imperfections. You do not expect yourself to be perfect. And the people around you don't expect you to be perfect because you have allowed them to know who you are. And what happens after that is a third thing, that now you can learn. When it goes up, you can learn. When it goes down, you can learn. When someone responds to you differently, you can learn from that. Learning is the greatest, even animals learn. It's the greatest survival skill that we have. If you don't adapt, adaptation is a consequence of learning, you will die. But we are not dead, we are here. So from my own personal experience, other than those three things, when Debarl said life is a yo-yo, I asked him, is it a yo-yo or a pendulum? Okay, maybe because I didn't have this yo-yo thing growing up. But I kind of thought life is a pendulum. It goes this way, it goes that way. The only guarantee is it will go. It will go this way, it will come back in the middle, it will go the other way. So what do you do in that case? I will share with you a few things that I have learned along the way that has helped me survive the energy of the pendulum for more than 30 years. One is that life is long. Those who die young are few. If you look at the average age here, those who die young are few. The rest of us, fortunately or unfortunately, will live to see the consequences of our choices. We will live to harvest from the seed that we sowed from when we were 5 years old to 10 to 15 when we were teenagers to 20-something when we were in the universities and colleges. We will live to harvest. So what do you do as you go about life, knowing that it is longer than it is short? You pace yourself. You have to be choosy with the seeds you sow, either in your own life or in the lives of those around you, in your career, because the harvest will come. Sometimes, unfortunately, the people who will sit under those trees of the seeds that you've sown will be your children and your loved ones. And they will be feeding off the poisonous fruit of the seeds that you sowed. And they will be sheltering under the poisonous trees of the things that you did. So pace yourself. Be choosy. Take one more day to make that decision or to build that relationship. The second thing that I have learned along the way, the good book says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. The standard of loving anyone else on this earth is yourself. How much do you love yourself? A lot of people are hurt because of expectations. I expected so-and-so to love me. I expected them to respond this way. How did you give the reins to the other person? At what point did you decide, I love this person more than I love myself? That they became more important than you are to yourself. The standard, I like Peter Ondeng, I believe in God and the Bible, so I would quote the Bible a lot. The standard by the good book is love yourself. Don't delegate love to someone else for yourself. Don't try love someone else because you don't love yourself enough. The other thing that I have learned about money is it's just paper and it's just coins. You give it meaning, you give it life, you give it purpose. It comes and it goes. So be intentional as much as possible with your money. Tell it what to do. This week I had someone say there are work horses and there are show horses. Money is a workhorse. It is not a show horse. It's not the thing you put on your hair to make you look beautiful. It is the thing you send to work every day, however little or much it is. A lot of people have, especially in the urban areas, I wouldn't speak too much about what I don't know, especially in the urban areas, there's pressure and most of it is financial. But what are we doing with the little that we have? Make your money your workhorse, not your show horse. We spend so much time trying to show what we have, trying to put it in places of visibility, as opposed to places of work. So with the little you have, send that money to work every day. Again, it is your seed. The harvest will come. The other thing that I have learned along the way, and there are, thank God, global statistics with this. 1 in every 3rd person suffers mental health. So how many are we here? At some point in our lives, every 3rd person, I could take the 3rd position, every 3rd person in this room has suffered some form of degree of mental health. Every 3rd person in your life is going through something. You could be the 3rd person at some point. So what do we do? I talked with a friend of mine who said, you know, when you're suffering mental health because he's gone through this, mental health and alcoholism, you're like a child. You want to close your eyes and hope nobody sees you. And that's how you go through life. And that is most of us. Sometimes you know, like Chris says, you don't want to get out of bed. You want to close your eyes and hope nobody sees your pain. Nobody sees your suffering. Then be bold. Open your mouth. Don't be like that goldfish that is drowning in a that is drowning and screaming voicelessly in the aquarium. Speak up. Tag someone. Don't lock yourself inside. Because see how far you have come. I mean, I think life tries to kill us, but we have lived. We have all survived something. We have not died. So this will not be the one that kills you. Just scream. Be bold. Because we're here to live. The second last thing I have learned along the way, and this is to single present parent. I won't call them single parent because the act of being a parent involves more than one person most of the time. So I'll just call it single present parent. I would like to encourage you that you're a whole person. You're not half a person just because one of you left or died or whatever the circumstance. You're not half a person. You're a whole person. You're a whole parent. You're not half a parent. So it might be tough. You might cry. You might be angry that the other person left. But do yourself a favor and let yourself know that it is very much okay to allow the other parent to have access to their children. It doesn't make you weaker. It doesn't make the child crazier. How much can your child lose by having both parents in their life? Don't make your child a victim. So we have a single parent outbreak. So I hear. Let me not say so here. I am one of them. I would like to encourage that it is not too bad. Fight the bigger battles. Having your co-parent in your child's life is not the big battle. That is a gift if they can be present. Even if it's once a month, once a year, your child is not losing by having both parents in their life. So again, be bold, be brave. Don't be the bottleneck. For women in business, big or small, take the step. It has been said. Chris has said it. Peter has said it. Take the step, one at a time. It is hard. You might think the problem is money or the ideas. Move. Get moving. What is the milestone today? What is the achievement tomorrow? But above all, have respect for your business, and your business will have reward for you. So I think that is what I have learned along the way in this life that has been a pendulum for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rita Oyier. Find yourself and be yourself. When you know yourself, you understand your imperfections. Learning is the greatest survival skill, right? And of course, also she's spoken very movingly to the single parents as well. And we shall be picking up on that as well to discuss. Be bold, be brave, go full steam ahead. Also, what are some of the choices that you're making? Still, the issue of choices is coming to. Are you choosy with the seed you sow? Right. Be intentional also with your money. Make your money be your workhorse, not your show horse as well. So we shall be picking up on that as well much, much later. Up next, we have Dr. Wale Akinyemi on the lectern to also give us a slice of what he thinks about life. Is it a yo-yo? And he's got also 8 minutes beginning now.
Good morning, Kenya. First, I would like to say it's such a privilege to be with such great minds. The easier thing for me to do now would be to just say, well, like Chris said, like Pete said, and like Kristen said, like Caesar said, you know, it's been such a rich conversation, and I'm privileged to be part of it. In fact, at a stage when Christine was speaking, I almost said amen, you know. So I think I've had my dose of good preaching, good exhortation this morning. Now, is life a yo-yo? You've heard it. I like to start by saying you can't stop a bird from flying over your head, but you can stop it from building a nest in your hair. Life is a yo-yo depending on what app is running in your head. For some people, the app running in their head, just the minute any small thing happens, they give up, they become victims, they blame everybody else. And others, the app running in their head, they take responsibility. So I'm not going to talk about the past. I think that has been addressed. I want to talk now about moving forward. Because stuff happens. And one thing that really helped me many years ago, when stuff was happening to me in a way that most people would never imagine. Like I tell people, I have sold firewood before. I've sold mangoes at the side of the road. I've sold books at the side of the road. So when stuff was happening at a stage in my life, I came across a book that, and it's funny talking about this book now. When I tell you the author, you'll know why it's funny talking about it now. But it totally changed my thinking. Here was a guy who was $900 million in personal debt, $2.6 billion in his business debt. And in that book, there's a picture of him, and he has boxing gloves, and he says, "I'm coming back." And you read something like that, and you think, how on earth? But not only did he come back, he's the President of the United States today. That book was The Art of the Deal by Donald Trump. And it really did something in me, because I realized a lot of people, things happen to them and they allow things to just take them over. The problem is not that stuff happens. The problem, or what is important, is how we respond to what happens. My background is in mathematics and emphasis on statistics. And when you have an equation, 2x plus 4 equals 20, the problem is x. So you're told to solve for x. Now, the only way you can solve for x is to first isolate x. So that means 2x equals 20 minus 4. X equals 20 minus 4 over 2. Now, if you don't isolate it, you will not be able to solve it. Unfortunately, what most people are doing, they are not isolating the problem, they are generalizing the problem. I've always said, I may have done what they said I did, I'm not who they say I am. Stuff happens. The fact that you failed in one area of your life does not make you a failure. Stop generalizing. In fact, what you need to do is look at the part that is working and use that to inspire yourself to deal with the part that is not working. Preparation for life will determine our response. Now, so life will take the shape of our thinking. One thing I have learned is that your internal density, the density of fortitude inside you, must be greater than the density of the challenges outside you. And that's why, a lot of people study for the exam of school, but they never study for the exam of life. The exam of school, you will be given a piece of paper, a certificate. But the exam of life, your reward is your experience of life. So learn to live, build capacity, and then learn to live from the inside out. Many people live from the outside in. That means your whole life can be messed up by what somebody has said, by what somebody has done, and all that. I'm a strong defender of human rights. Everybody has rights. I have the right to do what I'm doing. I have the right to say what I'm saying. Now, guess what? Anybody listening to me has the right not to agree with me, and they have the right not to like me. Now, I'm not going to get upset because they are exercising their right, because I also have the right to ignore them and focus on what I'm doing. You know, you can never please everybody. One of the things that I do that, you know, one of my greatest passions in life, I work with young people from the slums. I've worked with them for quite a while now, and spent a lot of money empowering them, equipping them. Now, no matter what you do, you know, I'm working with these poor people. There are still some people who say they are not poor enough. You can't please everybody. Even if you lie on the floor for somebody to walk on your back, somebody will still tell you you are not lying flat enough. So live from the inside out, not from the outside in. Now, some people, a few years ago, some people that I'm helping duped me in a big way. Now, what do? Do I now stop helping people? Do I stop believing in people? Absolutely not. I'm living from inside in. I have declared and decided and determined where I'm going and how it's going, how I want to live. Because my life is driven from the inside. One of the things that helped me, and I want to recommend, I am fanatical about biographies. I read biographies, I watch biographies, I'm fanatical about it because I believe that, you know, people say experience is the best teacher. I say it's the most painful teacher. It is the best teacher if it is somebody else's experience. You know, and the wise person learns from the experiences of others. The fool insists on making his own mistakes. So I learn a lot. I read biographies of Ted Turner, a book called titled "Call Me Ted." Inspiring. You see how they go through stuff. I read the book The Titan, biography of Rockefeller. Read the biography of virtually all American presidents. Now, as you read these biographies, you realize that, hey, people have gone through stuff. People have gone through stuff worse than what you've gone through. And then you realize that what you are going through is nothing strange. Ted Turner had failed in everything, and I think one of these magazines said that he's over. And then he said, you know, they asked him, there's a book called The Natural History of the Rich by Richard Conniff. And he interviewed Ted Turner and said, now this is a point where Ted Turner had failed, and said, when you think around the world, who do you think will make such an impact in the world in time to come? In his failed state, Ted Turner said, I've looked around and nobody will do it like me. And the guy said he laughed at him and went away. A few years later, Ted Turner started CNN. The rest is history. So questions I'd like you to ask yourself as I wrap up is, as you embark on the next phase of your life, ask yourself, what is the worst thing that can happen? And then, what will my response be to the worst thing that can happen? The answers to those two questions will determine the way forward for you. You know, we do programs in customer service sometimes for clients, and there was a client that had this problem with, you know, problematic customers, and I said, okay, let's paint a picture, let's build a profile. Build a profile of the worst customer possible. And they all gave experiences and talked about the worst customer possible. And I said, all right, so what you do, every day when you go to work, expect that customer to show up. Now, the likelihood of that customer showing up it's not going to happen. So guess what? The customer doesn't show up, but you are prepared. Now, the day he does show up, you are no more reacting. You are responding. You are actually happy that the customer has come because you are prepared for it. So take responsibility. Those who live by chance don't stand a chance.
Thank you, Dr. Wale. Of course, very good points there from Dr. Wale, and we'll sit down now and really drill deeper on some of these issues that were raised with our panelists. But also we can see reactions on Twitter as well. I just sample one or two on Twitter, and we'll embark on the discussions as well. Remember, also our numbers will be up momentarily. You can call and ask questions, or also you can share your contributions as well. We have Samuel Orutwa saying, all existing multinationals began as simple opportunities from zero level to be what they don't aim for high chances, but you can turn simple ideas into big. What it requires once you have knowledge is determination that makes the difference. Those with or makes difference with those with drive to do and without, right? That is what Samuel Oruto is saying there. Zipporah Wekulu saying, life is a yo-yo, just the words to finish your week. We have also Dan Gidira saying, thank you, Debarl Inea, for having the great life coaches, Cesar, Chris, Pete, Rita, Wale, all very inspiring. We have Lomwik Alex saying, really encouraging. Sorry, you started the show late and now I have to cut it short, right? Well, you're going to work. He's still saying that I always enjoy the morning shows, all the way from Kakuma Aluta Continua. That is Lomikwi Alex. We have also Tony Wamwangi saying, I can listen to Rita speak all year long. She is so powerful and real. I'm listening. We have also Bing Charlie saying, life is a series of chance events, good and bad. Quoting Chris Hart also. Bing Charlie still saying, the challenges we face in life define our journeys and shape our destiny. Also we have John Katwiskis 254 saying, life is indeed like a yo-yo and we should take challenges head on as they come. Every day is another opportunity to succeed and climb up the ladder and correct our past mistakes. Good day. Also we have Samuel again. Education gives you knowledge to identify many existing chances in life. Chances are dormant but activated by those who, amongst many, can go a mile ahead to change it into an opportunity and eventually a reality and make riches out of it. This is what Samuel Orutua is saying. Also, we do have Cindy, wonderful words of wisdom from Peter Ondeng, has said it all. We should accept who we are and accept the situation we are in and start thinking positively. And we should read many more I can see coming through as well much later in the course of the program. But let's get down now to brass tacks with our panelists to tell us more about this. Up first we had Dr. Cesar Mwangi on the podium, who also spoke about his slice about, of course, life being a yo-yo. He says life is not a yo-yo, life is like a yo-yo. And he started by saying that we have limited opportunities. He said that life is that limited opportunity that we do have. I just want us to take us back there, because also it reminds me from the good book many of you have quoted that, yes, it says in the book of Psalms 90:12 that teaches, O Lord, to number our days that we may gain our heart of wisdom. And of course, when you're looking through life, and this particular topic we were talking about, yo-yo, is just the journey of life in itself. And in light of what you're saying, it's an opportunity. Do people really grab this opportunity? To them, maybe life is a burden. To most of them, and some of them also, they really cherish life. They look forward to, waking up another morning and facing the day, because to them, life is those of opportunities. Yeah. Let's hear from Dr. Cesar.
Yeah, thank you very much, Debarl. The reason I said that life is really an opportunity. One of the things that you often find every day, someone is going to ask you, Cesar, how are you? People meet me and ask me, Cesar, how are you? And they say, I'm extremely well. And at times people ask, I mean, you sound very well. I said, of course, if I woke up this morning and I'm breathing, I am very well. I've got this beautiful chance to have another day. And in this day, I hope I will make use of it for the greater glory of God, so that I can be of benefit to somebody, and I can make this day better, leave this day better than I found it, because I'm here. And I think it's Pete Ondeng who said that we indeed have a purpose. The fact that we are alive, Debarl, and we are doing what we are doing is an opportunity. Not everybody has these opportunities. Whatever we do is a unique opportunity that has been entrusted to us in a limited amount of time. And we know when that time began, but we do not know when it shall end. In fact, somebody said, treat every day as if it is your first day and possibly your last day, because it's a beautiful opportunity which you have on that day. And I think if you treat it that way, life will be a bit more meaningful, right? Because you know that there's a purpose you have, and that moment, that day that you have, is a time, a possibility of achieving that purpose. So let's never give up on life. Let's never say it's a meaningless up and down movement. Yes, we shall have difficulties, but in those difficulties, we also find meaning in those difficulties. There are opportunities for us to learn, and I think most of the speakers here said that. Every difficulty is an opportunity to grow. Every difficulty is an opportunity to reflect for a better tomorrow. That's why I said that.
We just want to begin with Dr. Chris Hart, who is a psychologist. You mentioned when you were up there on the lectern that our lives are heavily dictated by chances. What do you mean by that?
Well, you know, when people write history books, they make it sound as if everything's very logical and everything could be predicted, you know? They sort of give you the reasons for World War I. But I'm absolutely sure that the people who were living in 1913 and 14 didn't see it coming. You see what I mean? And I'm afraid that is life. Life is absolutely overwhelmed by events that are not predicted. And so we have to live our lives resiliently enough to deal with those things. If we don't do that, then we're constantly knocked off course. I mean, nobody predicts the movement of the shilling. I know after the event they tell you why it moved, but nobody ever tells you in advance, do they?
Yeah.
You know? And the same is true about our whole lives. Very few people who come to me about their marriages predicted that they were going to get into trouble. People marry and think everything's going to be plain sailing. Well, it never is it? So, on the negative side, there's always a whole bunch of stuff that must be dealt with. The negative chances that life throws at us. The hurricanes, the car crashes, the relationship failures. But the fact is that life also throws a whole bunch of opportunities at us. And most people, we just walk with our blinkers on and we don't see them. And if you go through life not seeing the opportunities, not seeing the possibilities, you miss those too. Life could be much better if you just grab at the things that it offers you.
So where is the place of planning? When we're talking about chances, then you don't know what will happen tomorrow. Maybe another shoe drop will drop tomorrow.
Well, there is point in planning. There's point in deciding that you're going to go to college and study. There's point in trying to start a business. Obviously, if you start a business, you're going to plan. You're going to get the money. You're going to do all the things that you do to make a business successful. So trying to plan is fine. But if you overlook the chance events, then your plans are always going to fail. You can absolutely guarantee that if you start a totally brilliant business, some crazy guy is going to emerge as a competitor, and if you don't sort of get ready to deal with him, life's going to be real tough. You see the point I'm trying to make? Life is dominated by chance. We utterly underestimate the importance of chance in our lives. And partly that's because, well, when you go to school, it feels like an orderly progress. So we get used to that idea as we go through school. And I'm afraid it's the biographies as well, isn't it? Nobody ever writes that I was lucky. I had a stroke of luck. They always say, I was brilliant. I was absolutely wonderful. And so they give us that impression that that's how life works. No, it isn't. It's luck.
All right, so when we say teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. That is what we quoted just before we took a short break, Psalms 90:12. In light of life being, a series of chances, or maybe just a sheer chance that happens, is there a way that we can map out our lives, plan our lives in light of that?
Debarl,
How do we number our days?
Yeah, you're talking to me, I guess.
Yes.
I think the danger we have when we have topics like this that are supposed to be motivational, they're supposed to be inspiring, is that sometimes in the process of trying to motivate an individual or to try to convey that you can get yourself out of a hole, or if you just do this, or have a positive mental attitude and so on, we forget two things.
One is that there are some people who are in a situation because of systemic issues, things around them, things that have kept them in a trap. We belong to a community, we as individuals. That's why it is so important to engage with politics, engage with what's happening. We have institutions and things that sometimes, because they fail to work, keep people in a situation where they really cannot get up. Right now we're talking about employment and so on, but imagine those who are sitting in a hospital right now, who are not able just to get up and do something. You know, they can work on their mind, but they're in a hospital without drugs, they're in a hospital without, you know, doctors are not attending to them and this kind of thing. So let us not forget that. I'm just mentioning that in the process of trying to inspire ourselves, let us also remember that we have a responsibility to solve and fix the things that also brings about the vicissitudes of life that affects us so badly. I think, and I want to just underscore again what I said earlier, that I believe every person has a purpose. You were born to achieve something. And as long as you're alive, that thing is perhaps unfulfilled. You should be working towards it. Chance, if you define chance as unpredictable things, then yes, I think life is a series of chances. But I believe chance these things come also with purpose. I believe that things come into my life to strengthen me, to challenge me, but also to enable me to become a better person. And I have to make a choice about that. So I plan my life, I look ahead, I set goals, I decide that I want to be somebody, but I leave the reality to God. Because I also believe that there are some things that I cannot control. There are some things that will come into my life that I do not have a handle on. And those things should help to shape my journey, not stop my journey. Yeah.
But sometimes it also, as you mentioned, that life, you know, they're the choices we make. Life is a series of choices, and sometimes we are a product of our own choice. The question would be, and for somebody who is trying to understand that, yes, maybe I went through a very torturous rape, right? Maybe a very extremely torturing. You talked about people who went through the harrowing torture of post-violence elections that we just did have. She will be, or he will be, also extremely in a very hard place to actually say, truly, what are you telling me this morning? This was my choice. I mean, this is because of chance that I was raped, right? Because now I'm a product of my own choice. It was not really my own choice, but it just happened. How would you speak to that person who is in that particular very sticky situation right now?
I actually gave 3 things in my presentation. I said there are things that happen in your life because of choice, and life is a series of choices. And sometimes it's a choice to move in a certain neighborhood, which was an innocent choice, but it ended up being the place where the robbery takes place. And the second thing that actually brings you these winds of unexpected events in life can be somebody else's doing, like we talked about in the post-election thing. Somebody comes and burns your house, somebody you've lived around with for a long time. Somebody can do this to you. But then, of course, there are those things that happen that nobody saw coming, a hurricane, a storm, that hits you and sets you back. And in all these situations, the desired response to them, as I think all of our panelists have said, is to decide that I'm not going to stay here, to set myself in motion and to say, I will stand again. Because the one who gives up is the one who actually has failed. But a person who is down must decide that I'm going to get back up. And getting back up is not always an individual thing. It's a community thing. Sometimes you need to lean on somebody else.
Right, preparations for life will determine our response. Dr. Wale, this is what you said. How can we be adequately prepared for life? Can you feel like I'm ready, you know, lock and loaded, let's go for it. I'm prepared to face life.
No, but we can put ourselves in a position where when life happens, our next step is not going to take us down. And that's what I'm saying about where that is concerned. And, you know, since everybody is going Bible today, let me also go Bible, you know. You know, Paul was one of the people that has gone through the most terrible things you can imagine. He said I was shipwrecked. He said I was stoned. I went through all this. And then he says in 2 Corinthians 4:17, he says, this light affliction is but for a moment. And that's the point, that, you see, nobody prepares for war in the day of war. You prepare before. We're not saying the war will not come, but what we're saying is there are things you can do that when it comes, you've gone through the grief period or whatever you're going through, then you can bounce back. In essence, that situation that happened will not destroy you. That is the point I'm trying to make here. Yeah.
All right. I wanted to know, because we have transitions of life, that yes, we come out from the nest, we were given birth to by our mothers, and then we come out from the nest, there is self-discovery, there is marriage, and there is finding of your purpose, and of course yourself. Then you get sometimes into a comfort zone, and then of course your life sort of it tapers off in the old age, then you die. But does life has to go in this sequence? Who came up with this sequence of life? Of course, naturally we get born, but truly, does someone have to go to school? Can you reverse the roles? You know, I just wanted to just break the pattern a bit, and just also throw a monkey wrench into the spanner works and discuss on this as well. Do we have to go through these particular transitions the way they are? And who came up with these transitions? Right? Any of you can answer this. Well, be it Rita, or
let me just throw in a two-penneth. Society sort of tries to put us on a track like that.
Yes.
It creates things like schools and exams and such like expectations. Even things like marriage and all the rest of it. Society creates them. But the reality is we don't have to follow them. And the most interesting people on earth generally haven't. Some of the best people on earth didn't go to college, for example. Think of Bill Gates. Drops out of college. Who can drop out of Harvard? You can't do that. You know what I mean? You've got that opportunity. All his family must have been absolutely tearing their hair. But was it a good decision? Clearly it was. So yes, people can buck the trend. They can do things out of order. They can do things just completely differently. And strangely enough, they tend to be the more successful people.
But it will not be perceived as being normal, isn't it?
Who wants normal?
Yeah, exactly.
Who wants normal? Have you ever thought of this? And you really get me going once you talk about, the education thing, because, I think it was Mark Twain that said that I never allowed my schooling to interfere with my education. They're totally different things.
Yes.
Think of it. Anywhere you go today, they want, where are your degrees, where are your this and all that. The founders of the first university were not graduates. They said,
absolutely.
Yes, I was studying about it the other day. The first university, apparently in 859 AD, was in Fez, Morocco, started by a lady called Fatima Al-Fahid. And she said, now this woman is not a graduate. Now these people start this thing. They say, okay, you guys, you are going to come. We will keep you here for X number of years. And when you leave, what we will give you is going to be called a degree. And we all fell for it, and we are falling for it for hundreds of years. That means I'm starting what I call a street university, where the lecturers are going to be people on the streets who have succeeded. Now, that means I can start my university, and I decide that the paper I'm going to give you is going to be called a Wycliffe instead of a degree or whatever. And if I stay the course, it will stand. 100 years from now, everybody will be saying, do you have your Wycliffe? So I think it's important. I've been called a rebel, and I like the title of the ultimate rebel, because nobody ever achieved anything great by towing the line.
Right. And they always say, if I may, Rita, you can comment on that, then I'll ask my question.
My view over time has been that life is personal. We can share a lot of things, even as a family, but your dreams, your nightmares, your pain, I can only empathize if you tell them to me. But it's you who lives that. It's you who feels that. So as much as society might have these expectations, they will not live it for you. If they decide that you need a master's degree to get an entry-level job, they won't look for the school fees for you or go to that school for you. So you have to come to the realization that the decisions you make, whether it's for education, for family, marriage, whatever it is, you are the one who will live with them. If I decide not to be married today, however much my mother loves me, she will not come and live in my house every day of my life. I will see her probably twice a year. But I live with the pleasure or pain of my decisions as myself. And therefore, at some level, I have to be not selfish, but self-aware of why I do what I do.
Yeah, we have also William Buckley saying that when we break patterns, new worlds, emerge. And of course, we are born in a world where we have patterns, as we've mentioned. Have we ever, even in this country, had people who've broken the patterns and we've seen a new world emerging? We can hear from Dr. Caesar. And how can we also be comfortable within our own skin when we break patterns without people and the society, subjecting us to, to this ostracization and marginalization because you didn't know, you're not married, you've not really gone to university, you've not gone to college, you've not gone to high school. Who said we should? And,
That's a very good point. I gave an example earlier of one Geoffrey, the late Geoffrey Griffins. Geoffrey Griffins never married, for your information. He was a man of great service to this country. He broke patterns, okay? He was a white man, early days in Kenya, privilege. But he chose to serve this country, first of all, by looking for young boys, orphans who could not afford an education, and making sure they get the best possible education this country could offer. He lived for that. And then he was given the task of setting up the National Youth Service so that when these boys can go there and get skills and get jobs and become useful members of society. He broke patterns. I also mentioned the name of Wangari Maathai. She broke patterns. She was the first woman professor when women were not getting to that high kind of level of education in this country. She went for it, she got it, and then she focused on the environment when people thought that was crazy because we've got to make money in this town, whether we like it or not. The forests don't matter. Today we're enjoying the benefits of Karura Forest, the lung of this Nairobi city, because of that woman. Many citizens are enjoying the benefits of Uhuru Park because of that woman. Uhuru Park would be a CBD, with tall buildings all over the place. You understand? Because people only think of money. She broke ranks. And we need those kind of people more and more. People who decide, I have a purpose, I have a reason to exist, and I will leave this world better than I found it by my being here. That is breaking ranks. And we know many other people who have done this. We have people like F.D. Roosevelt, the longest serving president of the US, who was crippled from polio at the age of 12. He went on to serve that nation in the crisis of the Japanese invasion of Pearl Harbor. And there's a very beautiful story told about this man. At the time he was told Pearl Harbor had been attacked by his generals. And he called a meeting of all the generals. Those of you who have watched the movie Pearl Harbor will remember this scene. He called a meeting of all the generals, and they told him, Mr. President, it is impossible to attack the Japanese. We just don't have the ability. We cannot do it. It is impossible. Do you know what he did? F.D. Roosevelt told them, I do not know why God created me a cripple. But it's at moments like this when I have to prove to you guys that it is possible to do things even which look impossible. And he stood up. He was seated on his wheelchair. And he insisted on standing up from his wheelchair that day to tell them, guys, you've got to look for a solution. Don't tell me it is impossible when we've been attacked and provoked. That was crazy. They were all thinking this man is crazy. But they came up with a solution. And the point I'm making, any progress, any possibilities have to be done out of line. And the final thing I want to say, every river, every stream flows downstream. And the only thing that will ever flow downstream all the time is a dead fish. We have to be alive and willing to swim upstream against the current. And that's when we survive.
Thank you. We have callers who are hanging on the line. We have Simon calling from Bungoma. Good morning, Simon. If you're still on the line, good morning.
Morning, Debarl.
Morning to you. You have a question or a contribution for a panelist?
Yes, I have a contribution. That's a very powerful panel.
Thank you very much.
Discussing about life. To me, life becomes a yo-yo when everybody wants to be everybody else. Nobody wants to be unique. Nobody wants to be somebody. If everybody is marrying at age 20, everybody goes and marries at age 20 and just leaves and common, normal married life. And when one is going to university, everybody goes to university, struggles to get a degree, and lives just and earns a normal common degree. Nobody wants to be unique, and nobody wants to package himself or herself in a unique and strange way so that he can perform that unique purpose that we were created for. And look at diseases like diabetes and cancer. To me, I regard them to be lifestyle diseases or diseases of omission. One, omission and commission. One has committed something, and it stresses him to a point of sickness and even death. One has also omitted to do something, and that struggles and then makes us to live a life on and off because we are struggling to be like everyone else. And especially this one we call in psychology locus of evaluation. Others use external locus of evaluation, which is more dangerous because they want to live like everybody else. Nobody wants to use internal locus of evaluation so that he is unique and unique and unique. It's only uniqueness that can save us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon, calling there from Bungoma. Also, we have Elfas from Siondu. Good morning, Elfas.
Good morning, Debarl. How are you?
From Sondu. Yeah, good morning. How are you?
I'm very fine. Thank you for that powerful panelist you have today.
Yes.
I thank you for this leadership program that you usually have every Friday.
Mm-hmm. Yes, continue. We can hear you. Kindly don't listen to your television. Just talk to us directly.
Thank you very much. I have a question for panelists.
Yes, please.
My question is, in life you must lead people, and there is this group of people that whatever that you do, they don't appreciate at all. Mm-hmm. And they are so close to you. What do you do with these people? Because as much as you try to help them, as much as you try to do something good to them, they always see it negative. How can you handle this group of people in life?
Mm-hmm. Right. Thank you. Thank you for that question. And also we have Daniel hanging on the line. Good morning, Daniel, all the way from Loitoktok.
Hi, good morning, Debarl.
Morning to you, Damain.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. You have a question or a
you're a
contribution?
great panelist. I'm so happy about them.
Thank you.
At least they are broken each and everything to very, lower, the lowest we can ever go. Mm-hmm. In any case, and on a light note, Debarl, do you always wear glasses? I wonder. Am I mistaken? Sorry.
Yes, I'm getting old, so my vision is going dim, yes.
Oh, okay. Now, with the panelists, I think the worst thing is people stopping at the midst of a storm. Mm-hmm. They have said all of them, yes. The worst choices of our lives is when we want to get to the best place where we think we belong.
Yes.
We belong to the storm. And when you stop at the midst of the storm, you are done. Mm-hmm. The best thing is to keep on riding because, as the lady there said, the pendulum never stops as long as you are alive.
Yes.
So keep on riding against the storm. And that's how life will be more sweeter and devoid of what somebody also said, being like another or the other. Be unique. The uniqueness is what life now makes the difference and devoid of monotony. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Damain. Thank you, Damain. Right, and thank you for your contribution. Of course, also remember our numbers will still be up on your screens for you to call in and ask questions with the panelist. There was a question from Elfers. I think any of you can answer that, Dr. Chris, Rita, or even Dr. Caesar. Whoever can go for the swing for the fences, yes.
The question that was asked about doing things for people that they don't appreciate. Mm-hmm. I think it has been mentioned severally that live your life with purpose. And for me, the guiding principle for life is, again, the good book says, the Great Commission. Be fruitful, be fruitful and multiply. Mm-hmm. Be a place where people come and get things. You know, the challenge with how we look at life is we are supposed to take, we are supposed to be given, we are supposed to share in what already exists. Nobody is working too hard to create things. So for example, even if you look at the country, the corruption cases that we have. It's because everyone is trying so hard to fight for what already is there. Yet we are created to create.
Yes.
And our mindset as we approach life is, on this day, what have I created? What have I created that someone can benefit from? Then you stop looking at people that if someone picks a fruit from you, they need to give you something back in return. If someone shelters under you, they need to, kind of give you something in return. Create and go. Be like a mango tree. Drop your fruits and go. Wait for the next season. That way you're not so much burdened about all these people who have benefited from you and not given you anything in return. Be like your creator.
Be like your creator.
Yeah.
Right, thank you. Akinyemi.
I think it's also important, what I said about living your life from inside out. If you're doing things just to be appreciated by people, you will get very hurt. I think we need to understand that, you know what, I might do the greatest of things and people will still not appreciate it, but I will do it anyway because that's my conviction. So I'm not doing it for you so you can say thank you. I'm not doing it for you so you can do something back for me. I'm doing it because it is the right thing to do. Now, I think that is very, very important because we live in a world of photo ops. Everybody, you want to do good and you want to photo op. You are donating 1 million and you spend 2 million to tell the world that you are donating 1 million. We live in a world of photo ops. I think we need to get to a point where we say, you know what, is this the right thing to do? And once we are certain that it is the right thing to do, we are going to do it, whether or not somebody sees me or appreciates me. That is when you will find people picking up the piece of paper and putting it in the bin, not because somebody is seen, but because it is the right thing to do.
Thank you. Yes.
I may have misunderstood Elphas's question, but I don't think he was saying so much that he's doing good and nobody's appreciating him, but rather I am trying to help somebody out of their situation, but they are caught up in a negative cycle that they cannot come out of this thing. Now, I believe I would not walk to somebody who has a mental sickness and get upset with them for being the way they are. And sometimes negative thinking needs to be seen as a sickness. We are a product of our upbringing. We are a product of our environment. I think Dr. Chris would agree with this. You become what your environment tells you. And once a person is locked in a certain perception of life, we need to find a way, not just as individuals, but as a community. How do we get our minds out of this thing? Let me just confess to you, I have an antipathy. I don't like dealing with the mechanical things. And one of the mistakes I make sometimes is I'll be driving along and I'll hear something in my car making a noise. When it first happens, I hear it. And I think I need to do something. And then I don't do anything. After a while, you know what happens? I become accustomed to it. After a while, it becomes normal. Then after a while, I'm okay with it. Until I go to the garage and the guy says, I wish you had come here in the beginning. It's the same thing with people in either a poverty mentality or a mentality or an environment that actually has overtaken you, that we must understand that it is not just that a person chooses not to appreciate, but what steps must we take to change that person's environment or change that person's thinking so that they can appreciate and strive for what they were not seeing before. Yeah.
Right.
Can I also add something to what you're saying? Isn't it too fantastic to imagine that one person can completely influence another person? Isn't it a series of things? For example, if someone is in, say, the poverty mentality that you're mentioning, and you're trying to get them out, isn't it okay for you to appreciate that you will do something? It might take them somewhere, not to the end of where they should be, but the rest of that may be up to themselves or someone else. And therefore, even if that's the kind of question that Elphas was asking, then maybe he would appreciate that his role might not complete the particular negative situation, but will dent it a bit and maybe leave room for another thing to impact it and take it towards the end, so that he doesn't own the burden. And it's the simplicity of life. Don't own the burden of transforming other human beings, including your own children. Don't own the burden. It's this burden ownership of other human beings that's really bogging us down, even in marriages, with our children. It's just a whole thing of control. And we should let it go. We should let life be. We should let life be more organic. So I think for alphas, I would just suggest, do your part, dent it a bit. Someone else will do something, dent it a bit. And in the series of time, something will happen with that negative situation. So don't assess yourself completely on what you're seeing at that moment.
Right. Okay, there's a question also of the lucky break that you raised, Mr. Chris Hart, Dr. Chris Hart. And you say if most talented people need, you said most talented people need a lucky break. And of course you talked about Rawlings as well. But we want just to probe this particular question. Does the lucky break also depend on the environment? Because we've got many talented people maybe in Kenya, right? You can have you, and then they don't really have their lucky breaks as well. You know, hugely talented,
yes,
but still they are still waiting for that particular lucky break. Is it predicated on the environment? Do you have, or do you stand a chance or more chances when you have also a good environment?
Obviously, that's got to be true. I mean, if you are in an environment, for example, that makes you feel helpless, where as soon as you improve your farm, somebody comes and grabs it off you, you're not going to improve it, are you? So if you are in an environment where everything's stacked against you, life is going to get tough. And of course, that's the reason why so many people migrate, because they realize that and they rush off looking for greener pastures. It's inevitable. Unfortunately, societies often get into a state where they create what I call learned helplessness. In other words, you build people to believe that the only thing that can improve their lives are the actions of others. Like the government. If the government doesn't give me a contract, my business will fail. But you could get the contract from somewhere else. But if you have this learned helplessness, you won't do that. So when you're thinking about environment it is for people's talents to succeed. I mean, in some countries you can start a business on the internet in 24 hours.
Yes.
In others it takes 6 hard weeks or even years. You know what I mean. Now, which of the two is going to be more successful? You look at the laws of a country. Laws, I'm afraid, are often designed to keep people down. They're not to enable people to go out and flourish, they're to stop people doing things. So it's important that some people rise to the point where they realize laws are wrong and they campaign against them, rather than just saying, I accept that I'm not going to succeed in life. The greatest statespeople in the world are the people who perceive that a law is wrong and fight it. Think of Mandela. He could have just accepted that the law was apartheid, but he didn't. And we most admire the people who are prepared to be different, who are prepared to say, what I am experiencing is wrong, we need to change it.
Interesting. I agree. Let's go to, we'll come to Dr. Caesar, we'll come to Dr. Wale.
I just want to talk about this concept of lucky breaks, and I'd just like to suggest a paradigm shift. Okay, I think the phrase lucky break is a bit of a limiting phrase. Why do I say this? Lucky breaks are often associated with what I call conventional success. And conventional success is limited to a few people who are visible, who we can see. And I'd like to suggest that there are many people who are never ever going to be visible but are extremely successful. I give you a simple example. This gentleman called Mburu. I have my office in Kilimani, Olodume Road. He sells flowers on Olodume Road. That's his work. He's an elderly man. He's probably in his 60s. But what a pleasant personality. He serves his customers with great relish, with great joy, and every day, 7 days a week, he's at that spot selling flowers. I actually love the man. He's my friend. I think he's extremely successful, but we'll never hear about him. What's his lucky break? It's the joy of his work. Nothing spectacular. The fact that he will serve people a great deal of love and provide them with what they need at a good price without ever cheating anybody is great. There's another fellow who sells newspapers. He's called Mwangi. He sells newspapers here at University Way, just by the St. Paul's Chapel. He's been there for years, probably 20 years. But he does it with relish. He greets all his customers. They know him. He's successful. What's his lucky break? The things that he does with great joy, with great love. That's what it's all about. So I somehow want to suggest that we don't limit ourselves to the definition of success and assume that it's only Bill Gates who had a great lucky break, fell out of school and went on to be great, Mandela, etc. But look at it broadly. That the life that we lead with a great deal of love and respect for others is what makes us great.
Right, so, but did Bill Gates really have a lucky break? That is debatable, because you were born in an environment where you have all these resources, right? He was born in an environment where there was a microwave, a computer, and when many of us, we didn't even know about anything to do with microframe computers, I should say.
These things are all relative, aren't they? I mean, as he said, you can have, I don't like the phrase lucky break either. Call it an opportunity. Everybody sees their opportunity in life to do the thing they want to do. It doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be Microsoft. It can, just as you say, it can be a flower seller business. So the opportunity can be whatever it is. The trick is to choose the opportunity whose time is right. I mean, there was no point in people inventing the principles of computers back in 1850 because the infrastructure wasn't there. In fact, people did invent the principles of computers back in that time, but they couldn't build them. You see what I mean? So every opportunity has its moment. And when you see the right opportunity and the time is right, then you go for it.
Every opportunity has its moment. The mainframe computers and Bill Gates.
Yeah,
Dr. Wale.
I don't want to forget what Dr. Hart said about changing, people fighting to change the laws, which is superb. I agree with that 100%. But there may be somebody watching us right now who's thinking, for how long am I going to wait for the law to be changed before I do something? And there's a word that I think has limited us a lot. And it is one of the words I don't like. It's the word permission. You see, everybody is waiting for permission to do certain things. But there are things we can do without permission. I wanted to change the world, like most of us here probably did at one time or the other. Growing up, then one day I realized it's not going to happen because nobody's going to give me permission to do that. So I began to look, what are the things I can do without permission? So instead of thinking of changing the world, I now said, I want to change my world. I did not need permission to go into Madari to go and talk to young people. I did not need permission from anyone to invest in young people, to pay school fees, to equip them. No, I didn't need permission for that. And as I began to do that, the joy of seeing young people who at one point had no hope suddenly are flourishing, for me, that's success. You don't need permission to do what you're doing right now with a great attitude. The guy who's selling flowers, he didn't need permission to be pleasant. You you look at some people and you look at the very attitude with which we are doing what they are doing, and they cannot move far because and so I think it is very crucial we look at that thing, permission. Let us start with the things for which we need no permission.
Thank you. We have callers who are hanging on the line before we come to you.
Just pick that
yes.
one more thing. That's a brilliant concept. The whole of society, I'm afraid, tries to restrict us, doesn't it? It piles on more and more permissions.
Yes.
You have to have a license to do this.
Yes.
You're dead right. Find the places where you don't need permission and you're away.
Right. We have Charles up on the line as well. Charles hanging on the line. Good morning, Charles, from Mombasa.
Good morning.
Morning to you.
Yes, thank you. Good panel you have there.
Thank you.
I would like to resonate with the other callers who have called before.
Yes.
I want to begin by saying that a good song for dance that has no one on the floor is just sound. And I want to be on the floor and appreciate what you guys are doing. Change begins with oneself, myself. I agree that there are things that I do not need permission to do. What I want to say is I appreciate that we have learned, or I have learned a lot as a person. We expect a change for this nation and hence even for the world. What I want to request you, the panel, is that you are doing good. We have so much space in our mind for what you are saying. I request you that you do not tire up or what you are doing. We can begin a change from that desk. Thank you very much. You know that Kenyans, we are good in listening more than reading. I request or I challenge Debarl.
Yes.
Can this also be out there in tapes that can even be translated in vernacular languages? Because if change can begin from this level in our houses,
yes,
we can definitely change this country.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, and never give up. You are doing good. Gentlemen and the lady, congratulations.
Thank you, Charles, there from Mombasa. We have also Alan calling from Nakuru. Good morning, Nairobi, actually. Alan, good morning.
Good morning, Debarl.
Morning to you. Have a question or contribution?
Yeah, I have a contribution and a question to Professor Wale.
Briefly, sir.
First of all, I'd like to thank the great panelists.
Thank you.
They've actually done a good job. And we are really inspired wherever we are.
Thank you.
So my question is just a clarification from Professor Wale about not allowing the bird to build a nest on your head. And perhaps I want him to clarify on this basis, whereby you have a friend or a colleague who will always be on your neck, instead of him or her seeing the little things you're doing as inspiration to them, they feel intimidated, and sometimes they want to bring you down.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Hope Dr. Wale, you've taken note of that. Also, we have Kiprono lastly hanging on the line. Good morning, Kiprono from Nairobi. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Debarl.
Thank you very much.
Panelist, let me first of all say that from the beginning I was watching when it got started. And I'm very happy for what the panelists have contributed by giving people hope.
Yes.
They've given a lot of people hope. I'm inspired by their thoughts.
Yes.
And I've gotten only one fact that you have to accept the situation you are in, decide, and take a step. And before that, I should like to ask them questions, all the panelists, because they are very good people. I want to ask them one question. What message do you have for our leaders, the politicians, especially maybe the president, the MPs, the governors we elect, and MCS and whatever, because people vote them in the hope that they are going to transform their lives. So what message, panelists, please, can you address that so that maybe many millions of Kenyans are looking at them, but at the end of the day, they are let down by these people. Someone talked of post-election violence, and when you look at it critically, it was caused by the politicians.
Thank you.
So, can you give a message to our leaders, please?
Thank you.
Panelists. Otherwise, congratulations, and the bar bringing such topics.
Thank you.
Every now and then. Thank you very much, panelists.
Thank you, Kiprona. I appreciate it. Right, maybe we just want to respond to some of these questions from our callers this morning, beginning with Dr. Wale. Then also all of you can weigh in also on the political class and how we can change the mindset. You talked about land helplessness. I think also a critical question that we need to ask ourselves, everyone who's being born in Kenya, we learned that Kenya is a corrupt country. We cannot really survive without corruption. That is another thing that we need to tackle. But first of all, let's just address all these questions that have been raised and contributions that have been raised by our callers
Yeah, when I said that you can't stop a bird from flying over, but you can stop it from building a nest, what I mean is that, you know, and the example he gave, if you're dealing with somebody who, number one, doesn't appreciate what you're doing, you know, like I said, I'm not doing it because I want them to appreciate it, but they must be willing to learn. You know, I think one thing you cannot deal with is a parasite. You know, if somebody insists on, you know, I always want you to give me, I always want to give me, and I'm saying, okay, you know what, I'm going to teach you how to do it, and you don't see, and you see quite a bit of that. I am absolutely not called to parasites. I am called to people who have a vision. Yeah.
Right, thank you. All right.
Let me just touch on what Kiprono just brought up. And I think what he has done is to take this conversation and lift it up from just the individual aspect that we're talking about to the societal. He's talking about leadership, the political class. And I wanted to say something, because he has asked us to say something to that class of people.
Yes.
Success or progress of this nation is going to be both at the individual level as well as at the collective societal level.
Yes.
And one of the things that we cannot run away from, and it's been mentioned here about the environment that we live in. We live, and let me just put it out there, that Kenya, the environment, if you take the totality east to west, north to south, is a toxic environment where people grow up believing that certain tribes are bad, certain groupings are better than others. We have developed an environment that has pushed some people to believe that they actually do not belong. That they actually, no matter what policies, no matter what things are being done at the parliament level and so on, is not going to benefit them. You hear in the news that, oh, Kenya is a hub for the region. Kenya is making so much. Banks are making this kind of money. But the guy in a certain corner of this country who says, I don't belong to that. That is something we need to change. And I want to challenge those of us who have the privilege and the opportunity to be able to catalyze a national conversation. If we don't talk about this thing, we're going to head into a situation where masses of people are going to find themselves in isolation from the so-called mainstream. And then we can sit and motivate all we want, but actually people will find themselves locked because of the systemic issues that we have created. So that is my response to Kiprono.
Right, Rita.
Okay, in response to the issue of speaking with the political class, there's something that I have mentioned, and I think I will mention it again. We need to build a culture of creation, not a culture of snatching and taking or asking. What are we creating? Whether it's jobs, whether it's production in agriculture, whether it's entrepreneurs, whether it's people like Bill Gates, if we don't have a culture of creation, a culture of cultivation and multiplication, everyone will look to take. Nobody will look to create. So even when you're voting for a leader, for example, why should I prefer Kivuta Kibwana over someone else? Because he's creating. He's taking the mangoes and he's packaging them. He's multiplying what is already there. He's encouraging people to produce. Right now, I feel frustrated when you see the country is headed towards tenderpreneurship. What are we doing? Everyone is 30% of takers. But who is creating? Who is multiplying the little that we have? We are not even food sufficient.
Yes.
We are the only desert, upcoming desert in East Africa, because nobody is minding the basics, which is production. So we have to kind of, together with the political class, relook at the culture that we are designing as a country. And let's have most people putting in the work of what have I multiplied today? What have I produced today?
Thank you. Right. Dr. Caesar.
Just to add, and I think it's in line with that, and I'd just like to mention, in this desert called Kenya, where there seems to be so many bad things going on, there's some beautiful pockets of very good things going on. And I think that is what should give us hope, because I find so many people are losing hope in the possibilities of the greatness of this nation. and they think it's going to slide back to poverty and corruption and remain there. I don't think it will, because of the possibilities I've seen. And they are driven by leadership. And they are driven by leaders who decide, I will make this change. First example, the education sector in this country was in sheer shambles. You could not trust a certificate coming out of a Kenyan school, Kenyan examination for some time, until someone stepped on the stage and was given the responsibility of running the education sector. And he said, I'm going to change this. People said it's impossible, I'm sure. People said it'll be difficult. Others burned schools. Others, unions went up in arms. But it went on and on. And today as we speak, there is hope for our certificates in this country. Our education sector has been transformed in the public service, where it is very difficult to transform anything. Second example, a number of years ago, there was a great man living in this country called John Michuki. There was chaos in the transport sector. Again, an individual decided, change starts with me, and I want to change this. I have the responsibility of overseeing the transport sector, and I want to change it. And that is exactly what he did. He changed the transport sector. We used to be packed 30 people in a matatu. I used to travel by matatu those days.
Yes.
I still do now and then, but it's more comfortable now, thanks to this man. And many Kenyans are enjoying this. Now, what I'm saying basically is, we need more and more individuals. If we can have 2, we can have 3. We can have 3, we can have 4. Let us multiply these possibilities. And it starts with individuals deciding, I have a life, I have an opportunity, I have a privilege to serve, and let me serve.
Right. Yeah. Dr. Wale.
I think I just like to make one sentence, and that is, no entity, no matter what the entity is, be it a corporation, be it an organization, a state, a county, department in government, no entity can transform beyond the transformational or the mental capacity of its decision makers.
Okay, let's hear from also Peter Ondeng.
I totally agree with Dr. Wale that it is a leadership issue. I want to just underscore, and if I've sounded like a broken record today, it is that we need to change the environment in order to enable people to become all that they were created to become. Changing that environment requires a spirit of collaboration, which has been missing in this country, where we say we are looking not to negotiate on who has the better idea, but sitting down to dialogue on what is the common good for all of us. Because as we talk about motivation, seesaw, and so on, there are some people at the bottom of that yo-yo who are not getting up. Not because they are not motivated, but because of the structures, the systems, the environment that is around them that is actually holding them in that trap.
Holding them in a trap.
Yeah.
I wanted just to take us through before we come to Chris, because you raised this land helplessness. And you can see also from an editorial cartoonist, the sort of, you've talked about entrepreneurship, and we see the hurdle that is between Chebukati and Chiloba is all about this dirty linen, and all this is predicated on the 2017 procurement, the tenders. This is corruption. This is in the Daily Nation today. And this is some of the editorial cartoons that we normally receive on a daily basis, right? Is this part of the land helplessness that we are talking about? Also, take another cartoon. This is now in the Standard today, right? According to Gado. So this is with Kenya Power bills, which have gone up to sometimes, you know, the way they've been yo-yoing, right? So today they're up, tomorrow they're down. By talking yesterday with the same amount, they're different, you know? And so someone is saying, I'm overseeing the collection. It's going on fine. We should hit our monthly targets. But of course, you can see they're blank pay now. This is the Wanjikos who are adversely affected by this. And of course, there's a whole debate about monopoly and dominance and the way people also suffer. That is in the Standard. We come now to the Star. This is what we have today, right? The political class shuffling back and forth from these dynasties that we do know. If it's not from the Moi family, it should be from the Odinga's family. And if it's not from the Odinga's family, then it should be in the Kenyatta's family. And we're taking in a vicious cycle. So are we also, in light of what you're saying, this is the land helplessness, that if I am born also in Kenya, I'm born in a corrupt country, that's the way we do things. If I have to like game the system for me to get that tender, I will bribe. If I want to get my services, which is my rights, you know, from this country, get my identity card, get my passport, I need to fudge accounts, I need to grease someone's hands. So have we accepted this is a norm for our country? Briefly, as we're winding up.
I'm afraid you're right. We are living in learned helplessness. And one of the worst aspects of that is this. Every political class in every country on earth aspires to just dominating the whole of the wealth. That's what they'll all attempt to do. It's called the iron law of oligarchy. And every country heads that way. We're a long way along that path. And there's no way out using the people who are in it. They are determined to stay there.
Yes.
They want to stay in that environment. The only way out, of course, is for people outside to start to become politically active and to, in effect, replace them. Now, that's the tragedy of learned helplessness. Nobody seems willing to start a new, real political party that has a real constituency that cuts across all tribes and social classes and enables the country to really prosper. For some extraordinary reason, there isn't anyone amongst the Wananchi outside of the political class who's willing to do that. Now that's the tragedy of learned helplessness. So what will really move this country into top gear, if you like, is someone being willing to say, I'm going to take these guys on. I'm not going to join them.
Thank you.
I'm going to fight them.
Thank you.
When that happens, we'll do well.
When that happens, we'll do well. When will it happen? Finally, very briefly, 30 seconds, we have a question here from Tesi Omulo, and she's asking, can the panelists answer this? Is purpose something we are born with, or is it cultivated? Dr. Wale, very briefly, 30 seconds.
Purpose is the assignment. It is why you are here. And until you answer the why you are here, every other thing is an experiment.
Is it something you're born with?
That's the reason we were born, to fulfill a purpose. But we will discover it.
We'll discover it.
Yes.